the negative position, because today I'm going to tell you how to destroy them. How to take a look analytically at the Toolman model and take it down. So today is all about attack. Remember, the debate becomes fun when you see it as not only a game, but something of a little battle. Attack, counterattack, counter, counterattack, and that's what a debate is. And your parents should be very frightened right now, because what I'm doing is I'm giving you analytical models for tearing apart arguments and destroying them. Anytime, Jasmine. I'm sorry? You always lose your arguments? No more. You have
But it's not by me arguing wrong, it's by him.
asserting authority?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. All right, well, we are not considering authority. We're only considering rationality and logic today. You have three different ways of destroying an argument, three different ways of proposing counterarguments, three different categories that you'll see listed on your countering arguments primer sheet as 1, 2, and 3. The first two you can do with every argument. The last one sometimes crops up, and I do want to address it. First, you can counter the Toolman model. You take a look at the notes that you have for their Toolman model, and I want you to destroy that. Secondly, you could propose your own counter Toolman model, something that opposes entirely. Third, you could just challenge a definition. You could say, I don't agree with the way that you use that word. I don't agree with that concept. And that's relatively rare, but in the competitive debate world, we actually hit that one quite often, because we're usually talking about words and philosophy and so on. Let's take a look at my example to work this out. Remember, we're arguing the United States federal government should legalize smoking. So I want you to place your brain in the negative position on this one. Imagine you must destroy this argument. How would you destroy a Toolman model? What do you have to do? Don't tell me how you're going to do it specifically here. Tell me generally, what do you have to do, Josiah? Either. Prove, very good, Josiah. Prove either the grounds or the warrant are false, is false. One of those two. And remember what I've told you. If grounds are true and warrant is true, claim necessarily must be true. So in order to derail that, all that logic, prove that one of these is false. What do you want to prove is false? Which one do you think would be easier? Robbie? Okay. Ground statement, illegalizing smoking would protect the health of U.S. citizens. Tell me how that's false. Why is that false? Okay, I understand the argument, Robbie. You're saying, guess what? If they're not going to die this way, they're going to die some other way?
Well, yeah, and that, because you know how some people smoke to relieve stress, and you know, other people do other things.
Okay, so people smoke to relieve stress. I understand. How does that relate?
I like the first one.
Okay, that other things will kill them. Yeah. So let me put it this way, Robbie. Let me say that drunk driving causes accidents, right? But I'm thinking we shouldn't illegalize drunk driving because people get into accidents in other ways too. Does that seem to make sense? No. That's basically your argument. You're saying people are going to die in other ways, so why stop this one? So if there are 10 different ways people die, and we can deal with 2 of them, should we deal with the 2 of them? Absolutely. So just because the others exist doesn't mean that we don't go over to those 2. Possibly. What you're trying to prove when you're proving it false is that they're wrong, that it won't work. Not that it's valueless, but that it won't work. Jasmine? True, but isn't that basically Robbie's point that we've been talking about before? If there are 5 different ways for you to get sick, and I can only deal with 2 of them, shouldn't I deal with those 2? True? Okay. Sarah?
Well, not really going along those lines, but you could also argue if someone said, like the example that you said, like the drunk driving.
Uh-huh.
You could say that smoking doesn't impair judgment.
True, but I, on the affirmative side, am going to prove that it leads to heart disease and cancer. So it's not about judgment, it's about heart disease and cancer primarily. Connor?
You could say that most people don't smoke on other people unless they're smoking due to restaurant bans and public smoking laws already in place. So the really the only people that are being affected are the people who are smoking it themselves, and it's their choice.
You have the right idea, Connor, for a counter-argument, but you're already on step 2, which is proposing a separate one. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about that idea for a moment, hold on to it, okay? Because it's not actually destroying either of these statements. It's proposing an entirely new argument, which we'll get to in just a moment. Daniel.
Or like, you also have to worry about that. Even if it is illegal, people will still be doing it. They're so addicted.
Now we're getting to it. When you look at the grounds here, the grounds are basically saying a federal ban will stop people from smoking. Is that true?
Oh yeah, because
Go, Robbie. You've got it.
during the Prohibition era, they stole them all.
Thank you. Prohibition is your historical analogy to prove the grounds to be false. You say, we tried prohibition of alcohol for almost the same exact reason. It backfired tremendously. Nobody stopped drinking, and we developed an organized crime empire throughout the United States. So what's going to happen if we totally ban cigarettes? Guess what? People will still smoke, and we will develop a black market that will increase organized crime. Think drugs. Think marijuana. Think cocaine. What happens? Do people stop doing them? No. They continue to do them, and then crime and devastation flows. Look at Mexico. And then, do you see what I'm doing right now? I'm developing a counter-argument that proves the grounds to be false and thus makes their entire Toolman model fall apart.
Well, you could say that, like, if, well, legalizing smoking isn't necessarily legalizing tobacco altogether.
Oh, that's true. So I could say, hey, affirmative, you're just talking about smoking. Aren't there other ways of doing tobacco, like dipping and other sorts of issues? So actually, you're not going to improve the health. But Sarah, would they improve the health somewhat?
Yeah, somewhat, but if
Okay.
people still want to smoke, then you get the tobacco.
But be careful for a moment. They're not saying that it's going to totally protect the health of U.S. citizens. They're just saying somewhat. So it's still true. Even though you have an excellent point, their ground statement is still true. Robbie.
So they're talking about like illegalizing it in public, because like people.
No, they're talking about making smoking illegal in public or private.
I know, but they like you said, they made like drugs illegal, but people
Right.
still doing like
Right. In private. They still do them in, well, some places in kind of public. But it depends upon the environment. So yeah. Okay, can we attack the warrant? Can we prove it to be false? Robbie?
I mean, not really, because it says the government should protect the health of its citizens.
That's pretty undeniable. Okay. So but by the way, I have some debaters who will debate anything. If you say, hey, guess what? Gravity makes things fall, they'll stand in front of you and say, and if they decide they want to debate you, they're like, no, no, it doesn't. And they will try kicking and screaming to prove you false. And some of them could actually convince a judge. They're that good speakers. But Robbie's right. Robbie's correct. This warrant is pretty undeniable. So what have we learned? I'm going to focus my attention here. I'm going to ignore this. Not going to pay attention to that. I will not try to debate their warrant. In fact, I might even come up to a judge during a speech, and I coach my debaters to do this. I say, debaters, tell your judge where you two agree. So he looks at a judge and says, guess what? My opponent and I, we both like public health. We both think the federal government has an obligation to public health. We don't disagree on that. We're both good people. We both want people to be healthy, and we both think the government should do that. Here's where we disagree. We disagree on the methodology. We disagree on the process and on the policy. Now, what does that do? It focuses you. It makes sure that your thought is clear. And for an audience, it focuses them. So using the Toolman model is exceptionally clear. And your first strategy is just to take a look at the model and see what you can destroy. And we decided the warrant's true, can't destroy it, we're going to destroy the grounds. That's counter-argument strategy number 1. Number 2 is developing your own Toolman model. What were you arguing, Connor? Now it's time for your idea.
That there's already public bans in certain places, so people usually do it by themselves or people who are already smoking. So if you legalize it, it wouldn't really have any effect on the people who smoke.
But you had said something earlier also. It is violating what if I illegalize it?
Their personal choice.
Privacy, right? Oh, sorry. There's that. Here's my separate argument. It's a separate argument altogether. Take a look at it. It's got a new claim. My negative argument. The United States government should keep smoking legal. I'm on negative. Why? Because the federal government should ensure the right to privacy, and keeping smoking legal would ensure the right to privacy. Connor's right. And now we have a value clash. A value clash means that my warrant is clashing with their warrant. What if we can't have both? What if we can't have both public health and privacy? Which one do we lose? Well, Connor is arguing from what we would consider to be a libertarian standpoint, and that means you guys can harm yourselves as much as you want as long as you're not harming anybody else. Our government, by the way, does not usually act that way. Our government tries to regulate your behavior even when nobody else is involved. But Connor's saying, you know what, if I want to smoke myself to death, I should be allowed to. Maybe in the privacy of my own home, and maybe states should continue to enact public smoking bans. That's great. But guess what? I've got a right to privacy. Stop telling me what to do with my life. It's a powerful argument. And if he were to get up here and say, public health is a warrant, it's a value, as long as it doesn't intrude upon individuals' privacy, he could actually make a speech that would convince the judge that his warrant is more important, and therefore his argument is stronger. Sarah. Go ahead.
You kind of like argue with that and be like, but if you're, you know what I mean, if you're smoking yourself to death, you're gonna have all these like, hospital bills. And you're
Aha. Sarah's already one step ahead, and now she's thinking on the affirmative side of countering the counter. And that's, by the way, why the debate structure is speech, 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 back and forth, so you can do this. So if I'm on the affirmative side and I've just given my speech, right, with mine, then Connor gets up and he's opposing me and he gives his speech right here, talking about the right to privacy. And then maybe Sarah's my partner, and Sarah's got to get up and give the next speech, and Sarah says, hey, guess what? Privacy's all well and good, but everybody who smokes and kills themselves does not do so in private. This is not a private issue. This is a very public issue. Why? Healthcare costs, impacts on family, indirect impacts through modeling. In other words, you're showing other people that smoking is cool, and therefore they do it too. So Sarah's going to say something really sophisticated, that this is not a private issue. And what's she doing? Her counter is to attack this. Go ahead, Sarah. Mm-hmm.
But if people spend all their money on cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have enough money for healthcare and stuff like that, then we have to pay for it.
That is true. However, Sarah, I think that would be rare. I don't think mostly people usually exhaust funds with other addictive tendencies like gambling, but they don't usually exhaust funds on packs of cigarettes, which what, $4, $5, $6 for a pack of cigarettes, something like that. Oh yeah, 2 packs a day could. You're right. Now with the cost of smoking as it is, that could actually rack up. I wasn't thinking about the extreme 2-pack a day smoker, but you're right, Sarah. So you could draw some consequences out of that. But do you see where it's going? Argument, counter-argument, counter-counter-argument is all driven by this logical analysis. And that's why hopefully you have a logical analysis of your opponent's argument right there in front of you. So you can see how you could, 1, attack their Toolman model, 2, develop your own Toolman model that would kind of say, Judge, they haven't paid attention to this thing. So when Connor gets up in his speech against me, he's going to say, Judge, guess what? They're talking about public health. They totally ignore the big issue here. We're Americans. We have a right to privacy. That's more important. So let's focus on that. And then he's going to give a speech about the right to privacy. And that's what should go on in the debate, that trading off.